chilling new details in the fatal stabbings of 4 University of Idaho students.
Tonight, a suspect is still at large.
A story that rocks the nation.
The town of Moscow is terrified.
4 students dead in 16 minutes.
This is something that I can guarantee none of them have ever seen before.
Brutal, grisly crime scene. What kind of monster would do this?
For the first time tonight, we will hear new theories on the motive.
Whoever did this understood the sexual element to the crime. Carefully planned, carefully executed.
He just thinks he's the smartest person in the room, then he's never going to get caught.
Some of the nation's top criminal minds take you inside the case like never before to answer the question on everyone's mind. Why?
Thank you very much. You have a nice night. You too.
Think about yourself in college.
No.
Your whole life is ahead of you. You're excited, you have goals, you're working hard.
The University of Idaho is one of the largest schools here in Idaho. They have the Vandals football, which everyone loves. They have a big, Greek life where everybody goes and parties on the weekends.
It's your community of 18 to 22-year-olds, and there's a lot of freedom in that.
Police in Moscow, Idaho get a 911 call for an unconscious person. Police show up at this house. 3-story, 6-bedroom home on King Road. Steps from off campus, just a few blocks from Fraternity and Sorority Row.
Police entered the house from the front door. They walk up one level and they find the first body. And there is blood everywhere.
It's on the floor with visible stab wounds. She's deceased. They walk over and go to the bed, and in bed there is a second body. Now, this is the body of a male. Cops say he was found dead with what looked like sharp force injuries.
And then they go up to the 3rd floor, and they find 2 females in one bedroom, and they both have been stabbed to death. We are hearing reports that there was so much blood in the home that some of it actually dripped through the walls onto the outside.
There are 2 survivors. 2 female roommates are left completely unharmed in this house. And the 911 call came in from one of their phones. So our first question is, how did they survive this? This is a massive, massive crime scene with 4 different victims. Xana Kernodle was the first victim that police found. She's 20 years old. Friends are describing her like she is pure sunshine.
I love you so much, Xana, and I hope you're feeling the most happy, content, and loved in heaven right now.
My sister and I went to school here together, and my sister knew Xana really well. My sister told me that Xana would light up a room, that she was just the most bubbly, happy person that you would ever come across.
She was a marketing major. She was dating Ethan. They were the life of the party.
In the room with her is her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. He's also 20 years old. He was in the Sigma Chi fraternity.
He was just an outgoing, likable kid and who was a triplet here on campus. He had 2 other siblings going to school here at the same time.
If everybody was like Ethan Chapin in this world, it would be a better place.
Ethan was majoring in something that he wanted to do with sports and recreation. He was the kid that friends described as always having a smile on his face, always a good time.
21-year-old students Kaylee Gonsalves and Maddie Mogan.
These girls were absolutely beautiful. They had been friends since 6th grade. They went to high schools together. Then they started looking at colleges. They came here together. And in the end, they died together.
Did anybody do their chores today? Let's just do my thing. Get out of here. You seriously gotta get out of here.
I watched their TikToks of them dancing around the very house that they would be killed in, and it's chilling. Kaylee was just about to graduate that semester in December. She was hoping to be an elementary school teacher.
Maddie is a marketing major. She and Xana work together at a restaurant in town called the Mad Greek. They're all in sororities. These are just quintessential college students just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, this table would be sick for beer diet.
And here's the irony. Kaylee had already moved out of that house. She just happened to be at the house that night.
Kaylee had come back just for that weekend because she wanted to show Maddie her new car she got.
The house here is nestled into kind of this apartment complex village. A lot of off-campus students live in this area, really densely populated area. And kind of in this cove area, you can definitely hear a lot of what's going on.
Law enforcement is describing this scene as one of the most gruesome and bloody that they have ever encountered. We learned that these 4 victims were stabbed to death in the upper body, torso area here, and at least one of them had defensive wounds.
We believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there.
Police later revealed that there was no forced entry.
It sort of leads us to believe that either the killer knew the home really well, perhaps had been there, perhaps knew the victims.
One of the biggest questions that we had was, how did the killer get into the home? There's 2 ground level entrances. There's the sliding glass door on the 2nd level. And then right here on the 1st level, there's a front door with a keypad lock.
So the most likely point of entry would have been that sliding glass door in the backside of the house. The back of the house is also much darker, and there's a parking area back there that is just a quick walk in the dark straight to that door.
This house was known as being a big party house. It's in a neighborhood right behind Greek Row. They'd actually had noise complaints in the past in which police arrived.
In August, we see the cops approaching that back sliding glass door. Kaylee Gonsalves comes out, talks to the cops.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
And I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there?
Yeah.
Then Labor Day weekend, cops are called again to this house.
We're just here for a noise complaint.
This time, police can't find one person who is a renter or resident of this home to come and answer the noise complaint.
So I just looked for everyone that lives here, and they're not here right now.
No one's here that
no one's here
lives here at all.
No one's here that lives.
None of the tenants are here.
Well, no one's.
But the party is still in full swing.
This is a house with a lot of people has access to it, even when the women aren't even there. Police start gathering information and are able to put together a timeline of what happened the night of the murders.
At 8:57 p.m., Kaylee Gonzalez posts this photo. It's a chilling image. You see Kaylee there smiling, Maddie's perched on her shoulders, Ethan has his arm hooked around his girlfriend Xana, all four of the victims together earlier that day. Later that day, they kind of splintered off.
Xana and Ethan are seen at the Sigma Chi house from about 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. Then about 1:45 a.m., Ethan and Xana return to the house. Ethan was planning to spend the night.
Meanwhile, Kaylee and Maddie headed out to a local bar called the Corner Club. 1:30 rolls around, they head out and they go to a popular nighttime food stop called a grub truck where they pick up some pasta. And we see them on this Twitch video acting like college girls. They're on their phones, they're laughing. They take a private car service. By 2 a.m., they're home. The two surviving roommates who are in this house at the time of the murders are going to become crucial for police when they want to put together a timeline of events that night. Now, the one roommate, her room was on that ground floor in the front of the house. The second roommate, her room was next to Xana's on the second floor. And what she heard and saw was absolutely terrifying.
The surviving roommate was woken up. She thinks about 4 o'clock in the morning, and she thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog. The surviving roommate also thinks she hears Kaylee's voice saying, "Somebody's here." So she looks out her door on the second floor. She doesn't see anybody, so she goes back in her room. But then she believes she hears some faint crying and a voice saying, "It's okay, I'm here to help you."
A second time, she opens the door, she peeks out, doesn't see anything, closes the door, gets back in bed. Then she opens the door a third time, and what she sees shakes her to her core.
The surviving roommate opens her door, and she sees a man walking toward her, dressed all in black, with a black mask on. It appeared to be athletic and had bushy eyebrows. She says she froze, and he walked right past her toward the sliding glass door that you can get out of the home on the second floor.
She shuts the door, locks herself in, and police at this point assume he left the scene.
Knowing that the perpetrator was heard by one of the housemates to be almost consoling or comforting and say, "It's okay, don't worry, I'm here to help you," goes beyond betrayal. It's a mind to the victim that the perpetrator is getting off on.
At 4:17 a.m., a security camera on a home about 50 feet away from Ethan and Xana's bedroom picked up distorted audio of what appeared to be whimpers or potentially voices, and then shortly after that, there was a loud thud. And then a dog could be heard barking multiple times.
Based on cell phone data, the surviving roommates' accounting, police are narrowing down the timeline for the murders to between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. We also learn from cell phone data that Xana got a DoorDash delivery at 4 o'clock in the morning, pretty much on the button. Then her phone reports that she was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m.
Investigators on the scene process a second time, and they see something that gives them an idea. They find a latent shoe track. The term latent means that it's not readily visible to the eye. So investigators have an arsenal of chemicals available to them that they can use to enhance something and bring about more detail.
It shows a pattern, a diamond pattern similar to Van's.
It's critical this track will be matched back to a shoe that our suspect has worn.
This story starts to captivate the nation. Multiple victims, 2 survivors in a college town. You can't look away.
With a killer on the loose, police in Moscow, Idaho, trying to calm a community on edge.
This stuff doesn't happen here.
In some ways, this took our innocence.
We're 100 feet away. You know, how close was this person? Are they still around? Like, I don't know. It's so scary.
The town of Moscow is terrified.
I've walked at night in Moscow and I haven't worried, but this is gonna flip a lot of that upside down.
The fact that they didn't have a suspect, they didn't have a weapon. Clearly, the prevailing thought was that there was a killer on the loose.
How can you say it's a targeted attack if you don't have a suspect?
At this time, I'm not going to expand upon that.
About 48 hours later, police revealed that it was a fixed blade knife.
Police don't find the murder weapon at the crime scene, but they do find a leather knife sheath.
A knife sheath was found on the bed to the right side of Madison Mogen's body. It is a K-bar style knife, which is essentially a military knife. There is a Marine Corps insignia stamped on the sheath. It's a leather sheath.
If the murder weapon matches this sheath, which we are assuming that it does, it means that this was not a weapon of opportunity. This was a weapon that they brought with them. That means they prepared for this. Idaho State Police forensic team gets a full male DNA profile off of the knife sheath's textured snap. This particular sheath is newer, so it requires more pressure for me to close the snap and open the snap. All of that contact is creating more chance of leaving behind DNA. Investigators take this and enter it into CODIS, the Combined Offender DNA Indexing System, which is basically a database of felons, but they don't get a result.
The question that kept coming up over and over again was this a targeted attack? And if so, who's the target? There was a theory that the suspect entered from this sliding glass door here on the second floor, and that's right next to where Ethan and Xana were sleeping. And just across the hall from them is where that surviving roommate was. But the suspect also went up to the third floor where Kaylee and Maddie were sleeping.
Since the killer had to go upstairs and bypass those 2 downstairs victims, we assume that one of the girls in that bed was the intended victim. Now you add to that the knife sheath was found up there, which was likely the point where the killer took the knife out of the sheath to begin the crime.
Kaylee's father came out saying he believed that Kaylee could have been that target. He believed that Kaylee's wounds were more significant and seemed to be more violent than Maddie's.
Now, Kaylee also mentioned that she had a stalker to friends and family, and police run this down.
We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that, and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement.
Shortly after the crimes happened, law enforcement did video canvassing. They were looking for surveillance video anywhere they could find it. This white car was spotted at the home in the vicinity of the time of the murders.
So the reason this white sedan sticks out is because it traveled in a pretty unusual pattern that night.
So we're turning here onto King Road, where at 3:29 a.m. on that morning, surveillance cameras on houses nearby picked up this white car that made 3 passes in front of the house, and then came back a 4th time at 4:04 a.m. And the car drives and stops in front of this apartment complex before turning around and making another pass by the house. And when that car gets to the house, it attempts to park or turn around in the road. And then that car comes to this intersection, makes a 3-point turn, and then heads back down the road where that house is. And from what we understand, that was the last time that white car was seen on those security cameras until 16 minutes later, when it's seen leaving the area at a high rate of speed at 4:20 a.m.
Now we're narrowing the timeline down even more. From between 4:04 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. That's 16 minutes. 16 minutes to claim 4 lives. That's almost unbelievable. So the person who entered this home to commit these crimes very likely knew exactly where they were going within the house.
16 minutes is a long time. You need to ensure that you give fatal wounds as quickly as possible and get out.
To me, it was a lifetime. 8-10 minutes in that house is an eternity for a killer with a big weapon.
Police take the video footage of this white vehicle and they give it to FBI forensics examinators, and they come back with a make and model. It's likely a 2011 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra.
Police begin scouring town for video of this car. What they see is the car matching this description leave Pullman, Washington at about 3 a.m. This is a town just 15 minutes away. Another college town where Washington State University is located.
Moscow and Pullman are a hyphenated community. We sort of exist together.
2 huge college towns in very close vicinity. This car seems consistent with the exact same white sedan that police saw on camera driving around the house around the murders. Police release a BOLO, which is a be on the lookout for this white Hyundai Elantra, to all of the local precincts.
Little did the public know that 2 weeks later, they found one.
2 officers for Washington State University Police Department, they spot a white Hyundai Elantra on campus. Law enforcement runs the tags. It belongs to a 28-year-old student at Washington State University, Brian Koberger.
So when they pull up Koberger's driver's license, what they see is a tall man, 185 pounds, and most notably, he has these bushy eyebrows.
That description is almost an exact match to what the surviving roommate said she saw in the house. Within 2 weeks of the murders, police are running down information about this Brian Koberger. They learn that he's a PhD student at Washington State University studying criminology, and that he lives off campus just 8 miles from where the murders took place. He's also a teaching assistant in the criminology department.
This is a person who interacts with undergraduate students on a daily basis.
And that's not all. Brian Koberger holds an undergraduate degree in psychology and cloud-based forensics from DeSales University.
He got his master's degree in 2022 in criminology.
Brian Koberger.
It's really chilling to take a look at this survey that Brian was conducting, while getting a degree at DeSales.
He was administering a survey to people who had been formerly incarcerated. He was asking them to talk about their thought process, their planning process before, during, after their crime. It really indicates to me that Brian Kohberger was being very enthusiastic about getting inside the mind of criminals.
While he was at DeSales University, he studies under this renowned expert in serial killers, Catherine Ramsland. She quite literally wrote the book on the BTK killer.
For me, it was advancing criminology, making a contribution to my field in forensic psychology.
It seemed Kohberger had every intention of a career in law enforcement. He actually applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. And in his criminology classes, of course, they're going to talk about this gruesome quadruple homicide not 10 miles away.
He was often very talkative, that kind of person who would sit front and center. But then after the murders, whenever the subject of the killings came up, he would suddenly get very quiet.
They noticed he started to come to class looking more disheveled, more rough around the edges, and worn down.
Kohberger's not from the Washington or Idaho area. He actually grew up in eastern Pennsylvania near the Poconos.
His dad was a maintenance worker. His mom worked for the local school system.
He's one of three. He's got two sisters. Back in high school, Kohberger was described as being pretty overweight and that he was bullied, and that sometime between his junior and his senior year, he dropped like 100 pounds, and there was a switch in his personality when suddenly he kind of became the bully. So we're a month out from these murders, and the public is terrified.
We didn't know that police were following this trail of breadcrumbs throughout this case.
Police believe this crime took place between 4:04 and 4:20 a.m., just 16 minutes.
They're honing in on Kohberger. They start looking into his phone records.
The cell phone data for Brian Kohberger's phone comes back, and it shows that on the night of the murders, his phone is kind of near his apartment at about 2:42 in the morning, and then it is traveling towards Moscow. But at 2:47, the phone goes completely offline. It just vanishes, and police believe that he either turned his phone off or put it in airplane mode in an effort to conceal his location. Then the phone doesn't ping a cell phone tower until 4:48 a.m. And it pings a tower located south of Moscow.
When it comes back on the network, police see that Kohberger's phone is driving in this kind of odd roundabout direction about an hour outside of Pullman in Washington.
What should have been a 10-minute ride turns into an hour roundabout drive where the phone is mostly off. What is he doing?
On the morning after the murders, Brian Kohberger's phone appears near the scene of the crime again between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. It does make you wonder, why did he return to that house for 9 minutes on that particular day?
So for the perpetrator to come back, and we know they do this, of course they love to revisit the scene of the crime, but not 4 hours later. 4 hours later is ridiculously high risk.
So just 5 days after the murder, records show that Kohberger gets a new license plate. He registers his car in Washington State. Before, he had Pennsylvania plates.
Interestingly, in Pennsylvania, you don't need a front license plate, and the car they saw driving past the crime scene didn't have a front license plate.
At this point, cops announce wide that they are searching for a white Hyundai Elantra.
On December 13th, a license plate reader picks up that new Washington license plate in Loma, Colorado.
Then 2 days later, there's a traffic stop in Indiana. Koberger's car is stopped by police for tailgating.
Hello? Hello? How you doing? How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man.
On December 15th, Koberger is pulled over while being in Indiana.
Brian Koberger was driving with his father. Koberger and his father had already prearranged a trip. His father had planned to fly out to Washington from Pennsylvania and drive with Koberger back to Pennsylvania for Christmas.
Where are you headed?
We're going to well, we're coming from WSU.
But do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay?
The officer lets him off with a warning.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
9 minutes later, they are pulled over a second time for the same reason, following too closely.
Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of room, okay?
They're let off a second time with a verbal warning.
They take this cross-country road trip 2,500 miles away to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The whole trip took about 2.5 days. They arrived there around December 16th.
A law enforcement source is telling CNN that FBI out of Philadelphia is surveilling Brian Koberger for 4 days.
Pretty much every time Koberger exits the house, he's wearing rubber surgical gloves. They witness him cleaning his white Hyundai Elantra top to bottom.
Law enforcement sees Brian Koberger dispose of some trash.
Investigators pull a piece of DNA. They send it to the forensics lab, they get it tested.
The trash DNA profile is the genetic father of the profile developed from the crime scene. It's Brian Koberger's father. They're so certain that it is Brian Koberger's father, it is 99.999 repeating % certain.
They believed that was a strong enough match that they could then arrest him.
On December 30th, at 3 a.m., a SWAT team of 50 law enforcement officers surround this house in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger on a warrant for murder of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Breaking news.
A suspect has been arrested in the murders of the 4 university students.
An arrest in connection to the murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
A suspect has been arrested in Pennsylvania in connection with the November murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
Police also impound the white Hyundai Elantra from in front of the house. It's basically a mobile crime scene. Four days later, Koberger makes his first court appearance in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Brian.
Brian, what you doing?
How you feeling? How you feeling, Brian?
Are you ready to go to Idaho?
The judge said, "You have been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, and by waiving extradition, you are going back to Idaho to face those charges."
The whole newsroom was watching Koberger's flight from Pennsylvania to Moscow, Idaho.
So now Brian Kohberger makes his first court appearance in Idaho. He does not enter any kind of plea. The same day Kohberger is arrested, quite a few things are taken out by the forensics team from Kohberger's apartment.
From the search warrant returns, we know they've collected some dark clothing, a nitrile glove, bedding, and interestingly enough, an animal hair.
Kaylee had a dog, and we know that dog was awake because neighbors hear barking, at least caught on surveillance.
They took 2 cuttings from an uncased pillow of reddish-brown stain. They took parts of a mattress cover that had stains on it as well.
We have the DNA, the surveillance footage, the cell phone data, and all those other little pieces that certainly look like the prosecution has a very strong case.
We also learned that Kohberger's phone pinged from the area of the house 12 times between June and the day of the killings.
You see that this person is for 12 times before the attack in that neighborhood at very odd hours.
The question we all have is, why did he do it?
Why these young people? Why the number? What is the motive?
I feel unsafe. Sorry, I'm just almost on the verge of tears because it has such a bad impact on me. Living in the same apartment of an alleged killer.
When they executed that search warrant on his home and his office in Pullman, Washington, they were specifically looking for anything that he could have been looking into to plan the crime and any ways he could have been connected to some or all of these victims, any kind of digital trail that they could possibly find.
Was he stalking any of these particular victims, following on social media, sending any type of messages, visiting them at places of employment? We'd also be looking for online searches for the murder weapon, receipts of purchase for a murder weapon. The digital forensics is also going to be really key in this case.
I believe that whoever did this did it to see if he could feel anything. Yes, it's about violence. It's about the thrill of seeing how you feel as you take lives in such a horrible, macabre way.
Motive is certainly something that everybody wants as human beings because we want to understand why someone is capable of this.
We're going to learn a ton of information at this next prelim hearing. We're going to learn about the case from soup to nuts, everything that investigators have, and they're still investigating this case.
We don't know what, if any, defense they will put forth. The obvious one is all the people that had access to this home. That is a home that is known as the house if you want a good party for years. So there's people in and out.
I can go get them real quick.
How do you know without any reasonable doubt that it's him in that house? And it only matters what was happening inside that house on that night in the early morning hours.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions. Where is the murder weapon? How did he enter the home? Why did he choose these victims? All of these things may come out between now and the trial, but some of these answers we may never get.
Guys, I'm at Charlie D'Amelio. Check.
They are college students. They were home. They're supposed to just be living this carefree, hopefully working hard in school life. They are at the beginning of the adult road of what should have been a very long life. And I really think all the video and what we know about their last night, they're at parties, they're at a food truck, they're watching social media, they're with one another.
Last night I told you I loved you.
Got this off the website.
With both direction and magnitude.
It just talks about this vibrancy in each of their lives that was just unbelievably cut short. I mean, within minutes, not 1, not 2, but 4 lives taken.
was a beautiful girl. Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love.
Maddie was my best friend. She was the first person I talked to every morning and the last person I talked to before bed.
I love you so much, E and Xana.
It's hard, yeah. I think it's really telling how much these people meant to the community and how, I mean, just how devastating this is for so many people, and just, it's hard to put into words.